Telomere shortening is one of the hallmarks of aging. It's an inevitable biological process that we can change epigenetically due to our behaviors. You are aging faster because you're indoors due to this indoor epidemic.
It's actually up to 6 years premature aging.
Dr. John Puma, a legend in academic medicine, the thought leader in culinary medicine.
Almost everybody who lives in a modern world is circadian disrupted. Their circadian rhythms are not aligned with the morning light because very few people get out and do this deliberately anymore.
You're telling me that on average, we can change our health by being outside an extra 17 to 30 minutes a day.
People who spend an hour a week gardening have a drop in hemoglobin A1C by 0.5%.
Oh, that is significant. I'm very excited today, those of you that are listening, to have a legend in academic medicine, in creating entire fields of study, in currently raising in this green earth crops of his own, Dr. John Puma, who is an academic clinician, went to some of the same schools, including University of Chicago that I did. You're an internist, you're a trained chef, organic farmer, and have been credited as the father, air quote father, but really the originator, the thought leader in culinary medicine, which for years and years as an orthopedic surgeon, I'm like, mobility is first, and then sleep is king, because of course, as physicians, when we trained, we had no sleep because we were before the work hour restriction. But nothing matters unless we realize that our bodies are not garbage cans and that it matters how we treat ourselves, right? So I am thrilled to have you today because my core demographic are the people who really make most of the food and healthcare decisions in this country, 35 to 65-year-old women, because we make the decisions for everybody we love and care about. And when I was thinking about having you on, I thought, you know what? It is what you're saying about in your new book, The Indoor Epidemic, is so important. I grew up on a farm in Kansas where we had a 5-acre, we had a 5-acre garden. I'm all about dirt on my feet, and yet I've raised all of our children in the city. So they're missing out on that very thing that was so important to me. But I think
that's a huge garden. 5
acres
is...
You know what? My dad was a little crazy. We had 3,000 asparagus plants, for goodness sakes, but
oh my God,
we cut them all by hand. It was amazing.
That is awesome.
It is awesome.
I have at my little farm, we have asparagus too. We don't have 5,000 plants. We have about 25, and they're in a purple patch where I planted behind the culinary garden, which is rosemary and lemon verbena and Mexican oregano and a lot of herbs that I use on a daily basis, marjoram, everything that's purple. And it's like the only part of the farm that isn't completely edible. And except for this part, the purple asparagus, which are in front.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the UFC earlier. I did a talk at the UFC about nature-based medicine, this whole idea that being indoors 93% of the time is not only disrupting your biology, but changing the way that we are as a species, and we have to reverse it. And I asked, what happens, which vegetable blooms into a fern with red berries? You know, the smartest people in the world, as you know, at the UFC. And not one person in this 250-person audience could answer this. And I wouldn't have believed it unless I saw it. Of course, asparagus.
It's asparagus,
into asparagus ferns, which birds love the seeds of because they're bright red. And they're not edible, sadly, but they are beautiful. And we often let ours go 4 feet high and to wave in the wind and use as a barrier for the rest of the purple patch, where there are butterfly peas and purple sages and hummingbird sages and lots of other purple plants.
And this is on the West Coast.
This is in Santa Barbara, where I live, about a mile from the ocean. And I constructed an abandoned nursery, which had rusting car hulks and old buildings. And that was literally abandoned. And I refashioned it into a educational farm, which is now certified organic for 30 different crops. And we sell primarily to Michelin star restaurants and chefs in the area. And I used as a laboratory and canvas for writing this new book, Indoor Epidemic, to try out a lot of my ideas and to help and to see if it worked when people came for tours or came for events. I would try different things that I wrote about in the book, about morning light, for example, and about having your hands, as you just described, and your feet in the soil. And although we didn't actually assess anybody's microbiome as they did that, you and I both know that it changes when you touch healthy soil in a good way, that it protects your skin for your skin's microbiome and protects your GI tract as you develop that diversity of organisms that help protect you and make chemicals that are healthy for your body. And I tried lots of other things as well, green exercise and forest bathing. We have a little forest of oak trees and we have another one of avocado trees that people have forest bathed under. And when we taught nature-based medicine as a skill workshop in continuing medical education to UCLA physicians who came up to the farm in June of 2025 to learn those skills. And that was the first CME course in the country for doctors to try to understand how to use nature as medicine. We gave them the tools to do so. So now I want to give everybody else the tools to do so.
When those docs came to your campus, to your farm, were they honestly surprised? Because maybe none of them had their hands in the soil, or maybe they poo-pooed the morning sunlight. Were they surprised?
A couple of them were already good gardeners, and so they got it. And as you know, 70 million Americans think of ourselves as gardeners, which is fantastic. And I actually count people who have houseplants, and that's it, on their kitchen table as a gardener. And it's really important because that sense of nurturance you get from taking care of a plant, the contact with a living thing, the contact with soil is a powerful stimulus, not just for your immune system, but for your brain, which allows you to kick in your parasympathetic system, which, of course, as you know, is the way that we experience nature. We experience nature through our senses. And I taught the UCLA docs and lots of other people the way you remember your senses, because we don't use them every day for many of us, is by touching, hearing, seeing, smelling, tasting.
All we can do with plants, outdoors.
All we can do with plants.
That's right.
And the only way we experience nature is with our senses. If you think about, where's my device here? Like this thing.
Yeah.
Is completely adrenergic, right? It's lists, it's notifications, it's something you got to do, it's logic, it's, oh, look, I got a notification, it's 1:16, the thing's locked on top. But nature is none of that. You see it, you smell it, you listen to it, you touch it, and if you know what you're doing, you taste it. And that's one of the reasons that you kick into a different way of not just appreciation, but a lowering of blood pressure, a lowering of pulse, a stimulation of your immune system so that you fight cancer cells and you fight infection better. It's the reason that your digestion and your metabolism become more regular. And sleep, and I want to talk about sleep because I know it's so important to menopausal women, perimenopausal women especially. And 40 to 60% of women have disrupted sleep. Sleep, it turns out to be something that everybody can access in a way that I think we have not, that is also important to one of the other important topics that you're so passionate and knowledgeable about, and that is osteoporosis.
Well, all of these things fit together, and I want to go through a lot of the things that you've talked about because the women that I care for digitally and in real life, sometimes they're so busy and so told what to do that they come away with, oh my God, it's just another thing to do. But I think a lot of the things that you're talking about, when you map this out, don't take extra time. For instance, morning sunlight or just being in the right place at the right time. But there's so much to unpack here. When you're picking up your phone and I've got mine like you do beside me, I think, oh my God, he's so right. This is so two-dimensional. When I get on this, I'm absolutely in two-dimensional tasking. There's
Yeah.
no sensation or appreciation. And yet I know that when I get up in the middle of the night or not, I get up at about 4:30 in the morning because I'm a morning person. It's the best time for my brain. The first thing I do, because I live in a warm climate like you do, is I throw open the screen doors and I just go out into the night because there's something about night air. There's something
Yes,
about
that's
feeling
right.
the cool and
Yeah.
walk us down this path, because that's not extra to me. That is soothing what could be very quickly fight or flight. What do I have to do today? Am I going to the OR? What are the things? Really getting my cortisol up, but it soothes that and keeps me in almost a recovery state longer. Do you want to unpack some of that? And I go out barefoot, by the way. Right?
You're a grounder? You're
Yeah.
interested in
Well, I
grounding?
just didn't put shoes on yet, so I'm out there in my bare feet.
There might be something to that, by the way. It was a chapter I wrote for the book, but then took out because I wasn't quite persuaded that the data was strong enough to remain in the book. I reviewed 2,200 studies for this book, and it's just not the science of chronobiology, which is part of what we're talking about, how biology changes with time, is not yet reached the medical mainstream. But in researching it, I found that over 50% of our genes are actually controlled in a circadian way. They don't work well or optimally unless they align with your biologic clock. And it doesn't take more time to set your biologic clock. And you're absolutely right. When I was doing food primarily, one of my goals was to get recipes that were 7 ingredients or less and took 30 minutes or less to get meals on the table, because time's essential and you can create flavor well if you know what you're doing in the kitchen or have fantastic ingredients that you don't have to do much to. The same thing actually turns out to be true for how you deploy nature. But the first thing to understand is that indoor life is kind of a biological emergency. We're dramatically indoors 93% of our time. 7% of the time we're outdoors, which is about 12 hours a week, which isn't very much if you look at it overall. So that morning time that you're spending outside is part of your typical, a little bit over an hour and a half a day on average. And the good news is you only need to repurpose about 17 minutes a day, 17 to about 30 optimally, to get the biologic advantage that we're often leaving on the table when we train so hard, we use protein so well, we use hormones well, as you're skilled in and knowledgeable about. And yet, by not using light and air as tools, as information for our body, like food is information for our body, we are handicapping ourselves. So, what can you do that takes no time? In the morning, when you get up, and a lot of people have their schedule just bang, 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 you may have to get up a few minutes early to do this. But if you get up and see morning light for 10 to 15 minutes, it's the time that the receptors in the back of your retina, in the back of your eye, see light, are most sensitive to light. And those wavelengths of light, which you don't get by looking through a window, but you can look through a screen, set your master clock. They set your circadian rhythm for the day, which helps you do what? Exactly what you've mentioned, give you a big cortisol boost. So you wake up and instead of coffee like covering your exhaustion, you actually get an inherent boost of energy, which actually makes your day go faster because you're more energetic. And if you don't believe me, try it. It's remarkable how easily it changes within a week or so. So morning light resets your master clock, gives you a big boost of cortisol in your body. So light first, caffeine second. And then at night, it helps you make melatonin, which is a hormone that allows you to have sleep, especially if you're not seeing a screen 30 minutes before sleep. That's sort of the minimum. Need to shut off screens, including the ones on our phones and our TVs and our monitors, at minimum 30 minutes before bedtime, because otherwise that bright blue light from the screen will drop your melatonin level by 20% no matter what you did that morning, and cause you to have disrupted sleep. The other big thing that morning light does for you is actually two. One, it helps clean your brain. Many people don't know, because and I wasn't taught in medical school, and you probably weren't either, because only discovered in 2014, that we have something called a glymphatic system.
Yes.
Which is a brain cleaning rinse that only happens in what's called deep sleep. The first 90 minutes or 2 hours of sleep is when deep sleep occurs, the first couple of cycles. And that deep sleep is something you only get if your circadian rhythm is set with that of nature. So this is remarkable, because if you can get deep sleep, you can clean your brain of the proteins, tau and beta amyloid, that cause, or at least associated with, dementia. You have more control than you think. 80% of heart disease is preventable. 50% of all anxiety and depression are preventable diseases. 40% of all cancers are environmentally related and probably preventable. So with more control than we think, these simple, often nearly free interventions can change our biologic course so that we are happier and stronger and healthier and have greater health span.
You may think your bones are fine, silent, but if you're a woman over 40, your bones are talking to you. And unbreakable bone is how you answer back. During perimenopause and menopause, your bone loss can triple without us even knowing it. That is why I created my 8-shield Building Better Bone program, including Unbreakable Bone Nutrition Augment. Built on clinically studied collagen, microcrystalline hydroxyapatite, and the essential micronutrients your skeleton needs. It's the only formula designed by an orthopedic surgeon who spent 25 years rebuilding bone, muscle, and movement. Stronger bones are the foundation of a longer, more powerful life. Start building your unbreakable era today at shop.drvondawright.com.
But what people don't always piece together is that the deep sleep immediately after you go to sleep to clean your brain is connected to the morning when
Right.
you have, now tell me if I've got this science wrong, because I'm not a sleep scientist, but in the morning when you get up and you're addressing the light, then the
Right.
adenosine that you've rebuilt during the night is activated, so that slowly during the day you're using the adenosine, and as it depletes, that's when you start to feel tired. So if you don't set your clock in the morning, maybe you don't have this circadian way of being able to go to sleep so that you get the deep sleep. Am I thinking about this correctly?
I'm not really familiar with the adenosine hypothesis, so I will have to look that up as well. But I do know that having morning light and those bright blue wavelengths in the morning do two things. They, one, give you a big cortisol boost in the morning, and two, they tell your brain to prepare in the evening to make melatonin. That is actually set when you look at the sunset and the dusk. Because those amber waves, and some people emulate this with red light devices, those amber waves don't suppress the coming melatonin, and every other kind of bright wavelength light does. So when you look at the sunset and it's cool and they're red and orange wavelengths, that light specifically is not suppressing your melatonin so that you can go to sleep at night.
What happens on cloudy days or during the hurricanes we get down here in
Yeah.
Florida? And what
You bet.
happens to me when I literally am up at about 4:30, because that's when my body wants to be up, and I don't see the sun for at least an hour? Is it all wasted on me?
It's not. You can't, I mean, some people use a 10,000 lux light at 4:30 to set their circadian rhythm then artificially. And you can do that. You need 12 to 18 inches from the lux light, and you need 10,000 lux. But most people don't know that outdoor light is 25 to 50 times brighter than indoor light. Indoor light is like 300 lux. Most, if it's really bright indoors, it's 450 or 5. Most indoor lighting's about 100. Even on a cloudy day,
Ah,
outdoor light is 10,000 lux.
oh,
And on a
okay.
bright sunny day, it's 100,000 lux.
Oh, good.
And so we don't realize it because it doesn't look that bright outside compared to what it is inside. But the wavelengths of the light, which we can't see, are different than the wavelengths of incandescent lights or LEDs. And your eyes pick it up from all around. So I've had people say, well, should I look at the sun? And I say, no, please don't. Please don't do that. That's not a good idea. Just be outside. You can meditate outside. You can take out the trash. You can pull weeds. You can get something from your car. You can simply sit there and enjoy it. You can practice breathing. You can do lots of things. Because I live on a farm, I have stuff to do. So I go out and pull weeds or help one of my guys or plan for the next day or take out the trash or the compost. And I'm getting morning light as I do that. So for you have a choice. You can do that with a 10,000 lux light, or you can wait till 6 o'clock or 6:15 and go outside. If you have to be in the OR, obviously that's not going to work.
It's not going to work. But you know what? It occurs to me, one of the advice I give people as I'm talking to them about not having to do extra things, but needing to control our glucose and use mobility as a tool. But if you're telling me that on average, we can change our health by being outside an extra 17 to 30 minutes a day, and I recommend people after your biggest meal, go take that walk to push the glucose into your muscle. The reality now is that you've given me another thing to add to the multifactorial that is, because that's getting at the outsideness that we need, right?
Exactly. So
Yeah.
you're recommending already, Vonda, green exercise.
Yeah,
And
I
green
am
exercise.
actually. Yeah.
Yes, you are.
Yeah.
And that's powerful because exercise outside is better for you than exercise inside. So why do I say that? Well, because there are now 4 peer-reviewed studies that show that exercising outside versus inside results in about 20% less perceived effort.
Really?
You're doing the same amount of work, but your body feels that it's 20% less. Why is that? Because your vision and hearing are distracted by what scientists call soft fascination, the way the wind moves, the fractal patterns of leaves, the noises that are not stimulatory like they are indoors, like you have something to do. Your phone is not usually buzzing, or if it is, you often put it on airplane mode, or should anyway, when you're exercising outdoors. So less perceived exertion. Second, green exercise allows you, when you're running or walking,
Yeah.
to be social. If you're walking, you run into people. And that's actually a good thing. Nature is social. So connecting with other people is one of the advantages. There's a whole chapter in the book about this, why that is helpful medically. And then thirdly, exercising outside is in a place of choice. And it's been shown, you do 20 to 30 minutes outdoors in a place of choice 3 times a week, your cortisol drops 21% on average, below diurnal variation, below how much it normally drops.
Is that because we are exercising agency and that in itself helps us? Is that what you mean by
So I think that's really interesting. It might be. Um, the theories that have been put forward are about, again, parasympathetic system kicking in and vagus nerve with deep breathing versus autonomic insistence on notifications and lists. So less fight and flight and more awe and beauty. But I don't know that that's settled. It's one of the things we don't know about this. We do know that green exercise is, and specifically walking, is actually the highest, more than being in the gym, which I too love, more than being in the gym, walking has a 19% reduction in mortality and improvement in longevity, according to this 111,000 person study over 34 years from the Health Professional Study and Nurses Health Study, published just a few months ago, last month, in the British Medical Journal. And
Outside.
walking outside.
Yeah.
Yeah. Strength training, 13%. Tennis, 11%. They actually quantified these activities for people who volunteered that they were asked about each of them. And so what this suggests is that if you're interested in longevity, as both you and I are, you need a variety of exercises. You need both the gym and you need to be outside. You need strength training and you need walking, or in my case, pickleball.
Well, pickleball's great for the brain, obviously, the complex decision making. Now my mind is back on the two-dimensionalness of this phone that we both have sitting beside us. And you use a term called digital obesity and talk about being digitally inflamed. Can you unpack that?
Digital obesity is just being overwhelmed by how many digital sources we have. And some people think about digital obesity as a kind of burnout. And I just think, as too much sugar burns out your metabolism, too many pixels burn out your brain. And that's what's happened to a lot of us. And so digital obesity is nevertheless, I think, a reversible condition, though it shows again that indoor life is a biologic emergency. And what we ought to do in response is say that our body isn't broken, our environment is. And there are a lot of things we can and need to do to improve that. The answer isn't to get rid of screens or to go phoneless or any of that. It's to just upgrade your environment so that it works for you better. For example, if you have a super sealed environment, I'm not talking about an operating room, but most offices, you want to be able to open a window. And that sounds like such a modest thing. But, you can't do that in some hospitals, many hotel rooms. And yet carbon dioxide accumulates. You get more than 1,000 parts per million, and cognitive responses go down about 15%. You go up to 1,500 parts per million, it goes up to about 20%.
And that's
So
imperceivable. It's imperceptible. You can't tell that.
That's right.
Yeah.
And in fact, the whole kind of indoor epidemic is imperceptible. We just sort of feel like we're less energetic. We have more fatigue. We developed the bits of brain fog. You want to find out where your glasses are and they happen to be on your head. Or
that may have happened to me at some point recently.
Yeah, me too. And you don't know where your phone is, so you have to call it.
Yeah, right.
And those are simple things, but it also shows how we ultra process time, right? So this part of the indoor epidemic, part of the biologic emergency part of it is that, like we have ultra processed food, which is addictive and engineered, and ubiquitous, we have ultra processed time now that is also engineered for distraction and also addictive because people are on this thing 8 hours a day, and teens almost as much, especially children who actually develop. Part of the reason there's an epidemic of myopia is because they're fixed it on this device this close, like here, and their axial length of their eye elongates. And when it's taken away and they have 2 hours of free play, It actually stalls myopia, prevents, in some cases, high myopia, which can contribute to blindness, about 5% of myopia. And there's a public health campaign in Singapore where myopia is 90%, to have kids and parents off their devices and have free play 2 hours a day, versus the minimum that you need, which is 2 hours a week.
So that they can retrain even something as basic as our vision. Because I think what I hear you saying is that, well, I hear you saying a lot of things, but we assume, or we don't ever think about the fact that nothing is neutral. It's either positive or negative, right? So we've talked about our food. It's either good for you or it's bad for you. And now you're introducing the idea that screens are actually not neutral. They're not innocuous. Not good.
And it's not just your screens, it's the home environment.
Yeah.
And the office environment. They're not background. They're
contributory. Yeah. Biologically emergency.
Yeah. It's a biologic input. Where you live, where you work is information for your brain about how your body should run.
So it's good then that all day yesterday, all weekend long, it was just gorgeous here. One whole wall of our house, it's just whoever built this house, is glass doors. I opened the whole thing. The entire downstairs was open as if the outside was coming in. And that wasn't just because I wanted to open the door. It was biologically positive for me.
No question about it. Outdoor air is cleaner in almost all cases than indoor air. The reason that indoors disrupts or indoor air and indoor environments shorten our telomeres, make us age faster, are twofold. One, almost everybody who lives in a modern world is circadian disrupted. Their circadian rhythms are not aligned with the morning light because very few people get out and do this deliberately anymore. When you were growing up on a farm, and actually when I was growing up here, we were sent out early in the morning to catch the bus to go to school.
True.
And that act was really good for us, not just because we got to school, but also because it set our circadian rhythm for the day so we could, have a big boost of energy for the morning, which probably we didn't really need on top of what we already had. But circadian disruption is a core reason that our telomeres are shortening.
I want to stop and emphasize this because I don't want my listeners to bypass what you're saying. You are saying, we know telomere shortening is one of the hallmarks of aging.
Right.
It's an inevitable biological process that we can change epigenetically due to our behaviors. And what you are just saying, this is why I want to point it out to my listeners, is that you are aging faster because you're indoors due to this indoor epidemic. Is that, I don't want to put words in your mouth.
6 years premature aging. We quantified it.
And all it takes is an extra 17 to 30 minutes outside a day minimum?
Well, there's specific intentional activities outside. It's not just go outside and it happens. You actually have to do specific things, which is what I cover in the book. But some of them are this morning light for 10 to 15 minutes, right? Green exercise, which we've already covered, which has as a benefit, as we've also spoken of, social connection. When you're at the gym, I don't know if you do this, but when I'm at the gym, my focus is on lifting and on getting exactly done what I need to because I'm trying to get stronger. I'm not talking to people and shaking hands.
I'm not either. But should I be?
No, I'm all about work.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm all about work. I just I'm there to
work,
do a job. I want it to. I'm trying to get stronger.
Yeah,
and not have falls because they're bad for you. So circadian disruption is the primary reason that the indoor living is such a stimulus for premature aging. The second reason is chronic inflammation. And why do we have chronic inflammation other than ultra-processed food and injury? We have chronic inflammation because the indoor environment is not very hospitable to us. It has lots of toxins. And I'm not talking about just the VOCs from the paint or the off-gassing from the carpet, but a lot of the ordinary kill bug kind of sprays that we have around and other toxins in the home, especially, which is often sealed without access to outdoor air, which again is generally cleaner than indoor air.
Which is frightening given the environmental air pollution that is all over the news, right?
It really is. And there are, of course, exceptions to this. I'm not talking about smokestacks, in Gary, Indiana. But most air is cleaner outdoors than indoor air because of these environmental pollutants that we've kind of taken for granted and just inhaled into our home in a way, I think, that causes a low level of systemic inflammation in most people. And we see this as the reverse when we put people in areas that are highly green. In Louisville, Aruni Bhatnagar, who's at the School of Medicine there, has done a very interesting study in which he's imported huge canopies of trees from all over the country and greened a poor part of Louisville, especially poor part, and among other measurements, assessed cardiovascular data before and after this 7-year project now, and with funding from the NIH and from philanthropy and private foundations. And what he found was that there was a 22% decrease in CRP level, C-reactive protein, which is a marker of inflammation for people when they were within 500 meters of greenery. So even where you live and how close you are to greenery, dense vegetation, and how often you are exercising or moving or exposed to it, not necessarily just living there, but also in it for another reason, directly relates to your own inflammation level in your body. And we know that chronic inflammation is an important stimulus to aging, one that we want to cool down.
It may be one of the most important hallmarks of aging, actually, as it is a factor in most chronic disease, from diabetes to brain disease. But let me go back to this study that you just talked about, and it was a 7-year study looking at biologic markers of aging. But how fast can we see change? What are the studies that show us? Is it 7 days outside?
No. I mean, they saw changes within months.
Yeah.
And most of this data has not yet been published. It's called the Louisville Green Heart Study. But there are a number of other studies that have shown very consistently that people who live near vegetation have lower inflammatory levels, lower CRP levels than people who live far away from it, including children in schools. And Bhatnagar is ambitious and looking especially at cardiovascular outcomes. And I think the study is ongoing. Irrespective, what we can learn from it is that you have more control than you think, right? 80% of heart disease is preventable. 50% of all anxiety and depression are preventable diseases. 40% of all cancers are environmentally related and probably preventable. So with more control than we think, these simple, often nearly free interventions can change our biologic course so that we are happier and stronger and healthier and have greater health span. And I think it's just been missed in medicine that we have not used the outdoors as a tool or our biology as a tool and considered light and air as important as nutrition in aging, especially in longevity and also in chronic disease. But, light and air are actually nutrients in a similar way as food contains nutrients. So when we learn to do that, we can actually beat a lot of the problems of the indoor epidemic, but it does take specific intentional time spent in nature doing specific intentional things for just 2 hours a week to get any longevity benefit. That benefit actually tops out at 5 hours a week, although many of us spend much more time than that when we can. But, between 2 and 5 hours a week, and you actually get 5 years of health span back.
It's not a lot to ask, honestly. I mean, it's not you're telling me 40 hours a week. It's 5 hours a week. So think through this. Tell me, I'm about to change the way I prescribe something. Tell me if you think there's any basis based on the unbelievable 22,000 studies you research for this book. So I am on
2,200. I don't want to let that go by.
How much is
2,200.
it? Oh, okay. Well, it's still so many, right? John, I'm on a rampage. I was asked to speak at the American Diabetes Association earlier this year about menopause, and I was glad to do it, and the role of hormones in chronic disease. And one of the things in researching for that talk is because I'm an orthopod, for God's sake, not an internist, I became very aware of the data on how many people in this country have pre-diabetes and how low the blood sugar actually is when you qualify for that, about 110, and knowing that most midlife women, our sugar control goes out of control as estrogen walks out the door. So it's one of the things I'm doing. Women do not realize that with a pre-diabetes diagnosis, within 10 years, 70 to 90% are going to be full-on diabetics. And so they don't take it seriously. So when I prescribe, though, mobility and the way we eat, would there be any basis for me to say, if we're going to control chronic inflammation by green exercise, could I have an additive effect if I say, and not only do I need you to exercise in this way, but it should be outdoors?
I think so. And here's another data point, which I haven't yet covered. And that's in at least 2 studies now, people who spend an hour a week gardening have a drop in hemoglobin A1C by 0.5%.
Oh, that is significant.
It really is.
Yeah.
And that's about the same amount as an initial dose of metformin. And it is amazing. But what does that mean? It means you have to have your hands in the dirt. It means that you're planting. It means that you're pruning. It means that when you're lucky, you're harvesting, but you're doing a lot of weed pulling. You're planting. You're engaging with, and of course, gardening can also be communal. It can be something you share produce with a neighbor or in a community garden with others all together. And it's a powerful tool in diabetes. It's underestimated. And of course, we're not even talking about the fact that what you get when you're gardening is tomatoes and other vegetables and fruit. So gardeners, it's been shown, eat more vegetables and fruits than non-gardeners because we have more access to them. I want to cover one other piece that's so important to your message, and that is that I just learned in doing this book. And that is that, returning just for a moment to deep sleep and how we get that by setting morning light. You know this, I didn't know it, that in osteoporosis, you resorb bone almost all the time during the day, but you only build bone, you only form bone during deep sleep. And you only form bone during deep sleep if you get enough of a growth hormone spike, that you get a big growth hormone spike during deep sleep, the first part of sleep, as a normal way for the body to repair itself. But without getting that growth hormone peak, you don't form bone well. Women with osteoporosis, I think, have not known that they need to get deep sleep in order to fight osteoporosis, not just with medications and not just with weight-bearing exercise, and not just with diet and supplements, which can be beneficial, but specifically with a technique that allows their brain to A, clean itself, and B, their bones to actually build.
Well, and I have women who tell me that they haven't gotten a decent night's sleep in a decade. I mean, it's part of the suffering and the waking up at
Yes.
3:37 in the morning, and without the knowledge that it's more than just being tired, right?
Right. So let's help some of those women get morning sun, because, and I don't know of a study of this, you may, but I would love to know if it's been shown that women who get deep sleep have greater bone mass when put in equal categories in a cohort study than women who don't. And the fact that you only build bone during this hour or 2 hours at night, and that's completely dependent on your growth hormone peak, which it's normal to have and you want, and you release so that the rest of your body repairs itself, is such powerful motivation, I think, to try to release women from some of the bonds they have. A lot of women never get outside without some responsibility during the day, right?
But added as a true intervention for building better bone, honestly.
Totally.
Yeah. I think all of this is so fascinating.
And actionable.
And not
pretty
hard.
simple.
And not hard.
And not hard.
Right?
And not expensive.
What do you find sometimes, because I've been taking care of people so long, I'm sure you're the same way. I often say to people as I'm interviewing them and they start giving me the reasons why they can't. And I'm like, listen, we're going to just take time and list all your excuses because I'm pretty sure I can out-excuse you. What would you say, in your experience, is the biggest barrier to people actually doing these simple, actionable steps that you're suggesting in Indoor Epidemic? Is it knowledge? Is it time? Is it?
I think for now, we're kind of at the beginning of this. So I think it's knowledge. It isn't usually knowledge.
Yeah.
About healthy eating, people know what's healthy, just broadly speaking, and what's not. But people don't choose that as often because of time and money and fears about taste. So that's it about food. People make choices about food, about how quickly they can get dinner on the table, how much it costs, and what they think it's going to taste like, and sometimes just plain convenience. About using morning light, about green exercise, about forest bathing, about gardening, about meeting people socially, about looking at the sky and the stars and the sunset. I think people don't know their biologic value. I think this area of medicine has been underestimated and also under-researched until recently. There's more and more grant dollars that are available to fund research in it. But the whole notion of chronobiology seems kind of woo, but it really isn't. If you look at the actual data, aspirin works 80% better when taken at night than during the day. Flu vaccine and every other vaccine response is better if you get a vaccine in the morning than if you get a vaccine in the afternoon or evening, because that's when your immune system is most prepared to be boosted. Heart attacks occur between in early morning because that's when you get that big boost of cortisol, and some people's hearts just can't take it. Genes are 50% of genes, as I mentioned, are on our circadian rhythm. We know things about circadian biology, but they seem kind of like, oh, isn't that interesting or eccentric? We haven't thought about it as a tool, and we haven't thought about it as a tool for longevity or the prevention and treatment of chronic disease. But I think it is. I think we've just coming into the data that show us that, in fact, we can use it in ways that we haven't really identified well before. And the proof is in the pudding. I think people should try this, try the kinds of things that I write about, and see for themselves.
Well, I am so fascinated by this whole discussion, and I'm going to keep digging in. Your book, Indoor Epidemic, is out March 16th, I believe, sometime
17th, yeah.
17th, very soon. And you're going to educate the whole world and really change perspective on going outside in the morning, seeing the light, feeling all the senses that we simply can't get in our age of digital obesity. So I'm thankful for your time and your brain, and that we're alumni of the same great institution. It's a privilege to know you.
And to you, Vonda. Thank you so much for the opportunity. It's been great to speak with you.
It's my pleasure. Thanks, John.
Thanks, Vonda.